Before the dawn of a new nation, the American colonies found themselves on a collision course with the British Crown. Amid growing unrest and calls for liberty, tensions simmered, threatening to boil over into full-scale conflict. The stage was set for a revolution, a struggle for independence that would forever change the course of history. Starting back in 1754, the French and Indian War left the British Empire in crippling debt. To recover, they imposed taxes on the American colonies, such as the Stamp Act and the Townshend Acts, to recoup their losses. These measures sparked boycotts and widespread dissent across the colonies. Tensions boiled over in 1770 when British soldiers fired into a crowd of colonists in Boston, killing 5 men in what became known as the Boston Massacre. The British Crown didn't stop there. In 1773, they imposed a greater tax on tea, leading American patriots to disguise themselves as Mohawk Indians and board British ships, and dumping over 300 chests of tea into Boston Harbor in what is famously known as the Boston Tea Party. In response, the Crown tightened its grip on Massachusetts with the Intolerable Acts, implementing a blockade around Boston Harbor until the colonists paid for the lost tea. Instead of quelling the unrest, these acts united the colonies, leading to the First Continental Congress, where delegates from 12 of the 13 colonies convened to organize resistance against British policies. During the First Continental Congress, General Saxington, a former British officer born and raised in the colonies, was elected to lead a resistance force against the British if the need ever arose. In April of 1775, that need would arise. British forces marched towards a colonial armory in Concord, Massachusetts. Paul Revere rode through on horseback, warning everyone he could that the British were coming. Local militias and the Minutemen mustered their ranks and made a hasty defense at Concord. While we may never know who fired that first shot, it was a shot heard around the world. This became the first of many battles in the American Revolution, the Battle of Lexington and Concord. After hearing the news about the outbreak of battle, Saxington and 3 militia regiments marched into the area, and the long road to freedom began. Saxington wasted no time. The day after the Battle of Lexington and Concord, he swiftly advanced on the towns of Providence and Newport, Rhode Island. Both were quickly taken for the colonials as the Brits retreated to Boston. With this momentum, Saxington kept pushing towards Middlesbrough, where the Brits were again outnumbered and quick to retreat, and Rhode Island was secure within the first 3 days of the war. The word spread around the colonies about Saxington's victories in Rhode Island. Militias from Massachusetts and Connecticut started joining Saxington in the fight for freedom. While the start of the war was going well, if they were going to make any significant advances, they would need to capture Boston. It held the main British force on the eastern seaboard and had been the city with the most extensive resistance to the Crown. To do so, Saxington decided to make sure it would be hard for them to retreat and started preparing to take Fort Stevens in New Hampshire. While Saxington had the numbers to take the fort, it would undoubtedly cost dozens of lives. 3 regiments marched onward, outnumbering the British defense by 1,000 men. Attacking the fort from the south, east, and west, while casualties were high for both sides, Saxington managed to take the fort and capture 3 artillery pieces. The next step for Boston was to capture Salem. While the colonials recovered and repositioned, the Crown sent over another 700 redcoats into Boston. At this rate, Boston would soon be too fortified to capture. Knowing that the British Crown would only continue to send more redcoats into Boston, Saxington made an advance on Salem in early May with an entire brigade. Seeing how outnumbered they were, British forces retreated to Boston without Saxington firing a shot. With Boston now surrounded, it was time to move on to one of the biggest battles in the entire war. The first battle for Boston totaled 5,500 colonials and 3,200 redcoats. While the colonials took the heaviest losses of 3,700, they did manage to capture almost all of the British artillery. Both sides would retreat for now and recoup their losses. This is where the colonials had an edge. They fought on their home turf and could move men and supplies much faster than the Crown. The Second Battle of Boston wouldn't begin until June, when the Colonials had a 2,000-man advantage over the Boston garrison. After heavy fighting, they captured Boston and secured the northeast coast. 2 months into this war of intense and bloody combat, the Colonials had suffered a total of 6,502 KIA, with 292 MIA, while the British had only sustained 5,553 KIA and 195 MIA. Despite the higher colonial losses, they had captured the most artillery, securing 16 guns. With the northeastern coast now firmly in colonial hands, the next challenge lay ahead, holding their ground and advancing inland. Their next target would be Fort Ticonderoga.